Hi, and welcome to First Bite, a podcast by Nation's Restaurant News. I'm your host, Holly Petrie. Today is Tuesday, November 1st, and here are your top stories. First, restaurants are still dramatically decreasing their hours, a new study shows. As of October 2022, restaurants are open for 7.5% fewer hours than they were before the pandemic, a new research from Datassential shows. Second, Tijuana Flats names Joe Christina CEO, the former Church's Chicken executive named to head the fast casual brand. Third, restaurant sales hold strong in September despite persistent decline in guest counts. As gas prices fall and inflation rates moderate, consumers continue to spend money at restaurants. Fourth, Outback Steakhouse parent Bloomin' Brands leads into tech for kitchen service and sales. Waiter handhelds to be rolled out system-wide by year's end and oven update in 2023, restaurant executives say on Q3 analyst call. And finally, NRA editors discuss TikTok reviews, the McRibs farewell tour, and Chipotle's menu price hikes. Let's hear from Michael Pereira, the new Chief Operating Officer at Velvet Taco. Now let's dive deeper into one of these stories. As suspected, restaurants have been responding to rising costs and staffing shortages by cutting hours, according to new data from Datassential. The new research surveyed restaurant hours nationally and found that the average restaurant is now open for 6.4 fewer hours than it was 3 years prior, which points to a decline of roughly 7.5%. While this data might sound alarming, it is not particularly surprising given the challenges restaurants still face in a post-pandemic world and how the industry landscape has changed dramatically since the before times. According to Datassential, there are multiple factors even beyond dwindling employees that have forced a change in operating hours. Demand for in-person dining has declined since the pandemic, and people are home more often than ever before, thanks to 2 years of a lockdown habits and shift to work-from-home model. Let's hear more on this story from Joanna Fantozzi.
So Datassential came out with a study that really wasn't that surprising, but just kind of it backed up what we were always suspecting all along with data and statistics. So their most recent survey found that restaurants this year are open for 7.5% fewer hours than they were before the pandemic, about 6 hours per week. So roughly an hour a day. I would say that they're closing an hour a day earlier, or it could be open an hour a day earlier. But what we are seeing in the Datassential study is that restaurants are closing much earlier than they used to.
And so how does this impact businesses?
Well, it's not so much that it impacts business as it is a reflection of what's going on in the restaurant industry right now. Restaurants are struggling to keep staff on board. That's something that we've known about for forever. It's the song we've been singing for the past 6 months or more. And so if you don't have enough staff, you're not going to be open as late. And it's not just necessarily staffing, but also that customers' habits are changing. People are not eating out as much as they used to. And when they do, it might be for a more special occasion. I know that's I myself, I do that when I'm not going out to eat for work. A lot of times I might think of, because restaurant prices have gone up, I and other customers are thinking, all right, well, I can't really afford this right now, so I'll just wait till the next somebody's birthday, anniversary, etc., which kind of makes sense because according to the data, the type of restaurant the restaurant category that really took the hardest hit in terms of reducing operating hours is casual dining. And that makes sense because a lot of customers are doing takeout and delivery. So that would be more likely your quick service and fast casual, though, of course, casual dining now, like everybody, does delivery. But fine dining was the least affected group at just 3.5 hours per week, as opposed to the average 6.5 hours fewer operating hours per week. And that makes sense and kind of lines up with what I was saying, that people are really going out to eat for special occasions, and all other restaurant occasions, not all other, but most other restaurant occasions are kind of spent at home. People are doing delivery, takeout, catering, etc.
What about quick service and fast casual?
Quick service and fast casual were impacted less than casual dining. That definitely was the worst. The category, in terms of type of food, the category that I would say it was hit the hardest was breakfast chains, which again makes sense because people aren't really going out as much for breakfast anymore. And we noted that 3 of the top 5 restaurant chains that lost the most operating hours were breakfast chains. And that's Denny's, IHOP, and Einstein Brothers Bagels. The other 2 being Texas Roadhouse and Subway. So Texas Roadhouse being casual dining. So again, it's kind of following that pattern where people aren't going out to eat for breakfast and people are not going to that in-between casual dining. You're either getting delivery or takeout from your favorite quick service or fast casual, or you're going out for a special occasion. The other thing that's really interesting that we're seeing is geographically. And again, this really does make sense to me. You and I are both from New York. We both live in New York. New York City has lost the most dining hours out of any city. Datassential listed the top 15 zip codes that had the largest weekly decline in restaurant operating hours, and 12 of them were New York City. And the other three were also major metropolitan areas. And I think what that says to me is that New York City is known as the city that never sleeps. Um, I know that if you say to people, "Oh, let's go out to dinner at 6 o'clock," they might look at you like you're crazy in New York. That it's usually like 8 o'clock, sometimes later, kind of almost on that European schedule. And I think it says more about the former late night culture of New York City dining than it does necessarily about New York City businesses are more likely to be shutting down. But I do think that now New York and maybe some other major metropolitan areas are more on par with the rest of the country in terms of closing, and now at 9 o'clock instead of 10, 11 o'clock, because they have no staff maybe that's willing to work that late, or there's just not as much demand as there once was.
What can we expect to see in the future, especially with inflation?
I think it's probably hit its peak, if I had to guess, because I do think that staffing is getting a little bit better. That's what we're hearing. Inflation is improving. However, there is a likely recession on the horizon, so that could still be an issue. But yeah, I do think that it's just become. We know we hate this phrase at this point, but it's become almost the new normal that people, when you do go out to eat, you don't go out to eat. You don't go out to eat as much as you used to. When you do go out to eat, maybe you're going out at 6, 7 o'clock and you're kind of home and watching Netflix by 9.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of First Bite. We'll be back tomorrow with a brand new one. Until then, stay up to date with all your news on nrn.com.